Number 11. It's the 25th of May. And I'm just out with Tuco. And it was a windy, kind of cloudy day, but it's like this miraculous change has occurred today. Because now it's 6 o'clock, 6:30. And it is just kind of awesome today. The wind has stopped completely. The river is clear. And the sky is like this really beautiful blue. And walking toward the river here, you've got all these wheat crops they're at their greenest. So you've got these dark shades of green, and then different shades of green in the distance on the hills. It's like every leaf seems to have arrived, and it's pretty spectacular this evening. It's because kind of normally I appreciate the colours and the beauty of the scenery, but a lot of the time I just kind of get on with walking and talking. Well, the wind is getting up now, but this evening is really exceptional. I think it's that time of the year as well. You've just got so much growth and green, oh boy, and wind. Okay, I think that's just probably a gust. And looking again toward Lure. I'm gonna go back, Tuco. Allez, let's go back. Let's go back to Flow. You're not too keen on walking today. You're gonna struggle. Oh, I can see a rabbit. I can see a rabbit from here. A little brown rabbit sitting out. Lure itself. There is not a single cloud over it. It's just blue. And you can see all the undulations. And the colour of Lure is completely different to the colour of... I can kind of see what... the wheat field in front of me looks almost yellow compared to the dark green, which looks more like brown or black of Lure. I wish I had some talent as a painter, because I'd really love to go. I'd love to be able to catch that, I'd love to be able to do a very colourful picture, yellows and blacks and blues and greens. It's really fantastic. The wheat is it's up to my waist now as well. Everything has just grown so much over the last few days. Hey, I think I'm going to stop talking. I know it's been 3 minutes, but this wind is quite strong and I know what that sounds like on a microphone. 26th of May. It's Wednesday and I'm in the garden. What time is it? It's nearly 7 o'clock, but it's the 26th of May, so it's bright. The sun is high in the sky. Bernard is in his garden with his psychopathic fucking dog. And I felt sorry for Tuco, because as usual in the evenings sometimes he looks a bit bored, and I thought he doesn't want to sleep on the puff. He wants to come out and run around a bit, so I'm out here kicking his ball around. Allez! Just for a while, Oh. He likes me to grab the thing and then he tries to run away with it. Oh, or he likes me to pull the ball, so he gets to exercise his jaws. Where is it? Not really in the mood for running after it though, are you, Tuco? I throw it and he just stands there looking at it. Last few days have been kind of miserable, to be honest. Except last night, I had great sport playing Transport Fever. I set up my little 2-town place and I just focused everything on one thing at a time, you know. I spent a lot of time getting the production of the red bricks flowing, because I want to see just how high can you go with the production to a town. And I also for the first time got tram systems up and running, because again I'd like to see how much people can I keep off the streets, keep using public transport, keep them away from cars. And so I really enjoyed it. I got very absorbed into it because it was working well. I was getting up close to 300 units of that, the bricks, and then I was importing flour by boat, which was working very well. And I'd like to keep going tonight. I'm struggling already with the traffic, and it's only 19:10. So I may increase the streets. I may see what I can do about bus lanes. The big thing is, if I'm going to increase the unit of industry product, I've got to keep the streets clean. So that's what I want to do. Because I want to see if I can keep pushing up the amount of food and the amount of building materials up and up until I have the capacity, the factory running at full capacity, and then I may have to start in another factory. That's my aim. I don't know if I can do that. At the moment, Flo is in the room. It's a full moon yoga session with Satguru. I had a stupid thought yesterday. I wondered if there's a full moon here, is there a full moon in India? Is that really stupid? Is the moon cycle different depending on where you are on the planet? Because the sun is in a different spot depending on where you are. Is this all stupid? I think this is stupid. Or is it? Anyhow, finished, Tuco. Let's go back upstairs, huh? Just flies and things down here, and I'll bring your little fella up. Let's bring this guy. I threw him up the steps and Tuco just walked straight over him. Oh, bollocks. Well, I'm halfway up the steps. I just have to throw the line from halfway up the steps through the door. Nothing simpler. What do? I throw him, he hits a leaf, and he falls down all the way down here to the weeds. And I don't want to leave the little fella out there. So, deja vu. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it right. Up. Nearly did it again. Oh, fuck. Man, that's theirs. Right. I was doing your yoga, so I have to be quiet now. sign off, I've got something important to say. So the important news is that 13. Today is the 30th of May. End of May. I wasn't sure whether to turn this on or not because I'm not sure I have a lot to say. I'm in that kind of a mood of being blank. It's a Sunday and I'm walking into the Connemara. I'm just getting up to the old house that's been redone. I can't pronounce the word here. And me and Flo, we're just talking quickly about the I was saying when I walk down the street and I meet a bunch of people and I say hello, and if the people are in their 20s or 30s, I don't see any difference between us. Because I was kind of saying, to me, I feel like I'm the same person walking around that was walking around 20 years ago. But I continually forget that there's a very high chance that the people looking at me don't see the guy I see in my mind walking around. They see this older guy, And I made the mistake a few days ago, maybe yesterday, the day before, of just turning my phone on and recording myself walking pretty much where I am now, with the sun kind of behind me, and I forgot about it and I watched it today. I was just happened to see it. And again, you get this idea in your head of who you are. But when I saw this image, it was clearly a much older person than I think I am, with the very pronounced older neck skin and the bags under the eyes and the loose skin. I mean, you can record yourself in other ways with your head up, with the lights coming from a certain direction, and you can knock a decade off your age from the one I was talking about there, because that was really filmed the worst possible way, me looking down into a device with the sun behind me. But just talking to Flo about it, like Flo keeps saying when she sees the picture on our bedroom desk of the day we got married, and she says it was really, really two very much younger people, and I mean, of course it is. It was getting close to 20 years ago. As we get older, you can develop a certain empathy and compassion for, I know I have, for animals and things. And it's made me kind of sensitive to certain things that I can't watch on TV, and I can really appreciate a certain desperation and loneliness in people. And these things they only come with age. It's funny, we're not born with this empathy and compassion. Young people probably good for them, and maybe it's necessary. They don't have that. I'm sure I must have passed by many an older person in my youth without a thought, Although, and honest to myself, 20, 30 years ago, I did have a great respect for older people. I was aware they had their own stories to tell, and they'd been around a long time and would have had a lot of advice to give. But the other type of compassion and empathy, a lot of it doesn't come till you start hitting a certain age group yourself. And it's gloomy, the thoughts on those things. And me thinking about what occupies me 90% of the time, that's besides the crypto, it's chess and transport fever too. I kind of think at the banality of that. Nietzsche would say that was just a very decadent outlook. Not really doing anything with oneself that would have any kind of a upward trend in constructing yourself. Buongiorno. Creating a human being of substance and great style, as Nietzsche would say. But I spend all my time thinking about this, the greatest of trivialities. And sometimes I can't help but wonder, is it kind of what a waste, or the bigger thing, the whole thing in itself is kind of a waste. There's very few of us doing anything that the world wouldn't miss. I know there are doctors and nurses and policemen, and there are people there, and you could say they're great artists that do, whoever put together Spielberg and these guys that put together the movie Jaws. It's a hell of a thing what they did, because they gave a hell of a lot of people something they'll always remember, And something in a movie like that, there's a strength in it. Obviously you can say the same about the top artists that inspire people. But people like me, and many like me, the millions, the everymen, if my existence was snuffed out here in a moment, besides a handful of people, it would be as if I was never here. Anyway, it's not that depresses me too much, but, and it's not like I want to be, I'm craving fame or anything. It's not that. Buongiorno. Because I'm sure if Nietzsche was here, I could see him smiling beside me, getting all animated and saying, it's up to you to create the whole reason for existence. That was the whole point of every line I ever wrote, was just the problem you're trying to put down. That problem of finding any sense or meaning. You have to find it yourself. You have to, I guess, trust in the path you're on. Trust in a certain kind of magic, higher entity in yourself, or in connection with something outside. So that, and what I was thinking as well, maybe the whole point of feeling the passing of time and of coming in touch with issues that never bothered one when you were younger. Maybe these very issues and this very realization of mortality, maybe even the realization of the triviality or the nonsense of most of it all, most of it actually leads to a place of calmness. You know, maybe the realization that it's really all kind of pointless can actually lead to a newfound sense of calm, to a lack of any or at least a diminishing of certain types of stress, of certain types of self-consciousness. I keep going back to the thing, I think it was Peterson said about the crabs and animals like snakes and things when they shed their skins. It must be very uncomfortable before they move on to kind of a next level, and maybe that's the way it is with people like me that think too much. Maybe there's unseen riches to be gained in accepting various hard truths. Hey, no need to say where I'm going now. Crossing the bridge. I'm wearing my shorts today for the first time. Shorts. My boot runners. My NASA t-shirt and a blue shirt to cover my arms. And the red cap. I've got this dog who's probably going to try and jump at me. No. Yeah, perhaps the knowledge of those things, perhaps these days of, well, I've had this conversation so many times, these days of existentialist mumbo jumbo, perhaps they lead on to a greater appreciation of the simpler things of life. For instance, if you took all this stuff on board and it just settled you down in some kind of mega way, because you realize, well, it's all for nothing, kind of in the end, there's no sense in worrying about anything. The only thing you have that counts is your health, being able to walk around, nothing else really matters. And we like recognition, and we need it, but if you be yourself and if you have a relaxed state and you put yourself out there, then maybe you do things that you don't know you do for the better. And that gets back to Nietzsche saying you've got to kind of construct your own mythology around yourself. And these things would leave one, for instance, not worrying about their investment in cryptocurrency. I'm glad I remember the point of this, because I wanted to make that point 20 sentences ago and I'd almost forgotten what the point of the sentences were, but that's a good example. You get very laid back, you take things simply, You know nothing counts more than your health. You know that you have good days and bad days psychologically, and that you have the responsibility for uplifting yourself. And then you have a quiet faith in the rhythms of life and the waves. And you just don't get stressed at all about temporary things. Everything's temporary. Material things. You can just have a different relationship, like I say, with money, with jobs, even with relationships. You get yourself into a position where you try and be the best you can in your relationship, but you stop getting stressed out and feeling bad, even if somebody is telling you how useless you are. You're strong enough to either accept that, yeah, you're damn right, I'm totally useless. That's the whole, in a sense, that's one of the existentialist problems I'm talking about, is the ultimate uselessness of most of us, and why we have to find a new way ourselves through doing stuff. I haven't yet. I wish I could find a way of getting some of these thoughts onto my YouTube channel in such a way that there were some images. It would also be great to have the following, but there we go. That's the problem, isn't it? That's the recognition and the looking for self-worth in the eyes of others. It shouldn't really be like that. And so that's the way things are on this 30th of May, 2021. Sometimes think of my mother, you know, she turned 80 in March. And I'm a self-centered, selfish person. I very seldom think of anybody except really Flo and my mother, Martina, John, Catherine, Justine, John. Outside those, though, I don't think of very many people. Not even them, not at the time. But thinking of my mother and her age, 80. What must that be like? Imagine if I was 80. And I'd be thinking, you know, 20 years ago you were doing this. In another 20 years you'll be 100, and although you'd like to think you could live forever, there does seem to be a cut-off point. There does seem to be a cut-off point. The stuff I'm talking about now, if I could rearrange it somewhere, it's the kind of stuff that would work so well in a comedy setting. It's stand-up material, you know. Stuff that, at its essence, it's completely true, but it's also kind of absurd. Kind of absurd. If you could make a joke about it, if you could put it across just like you just did there. I'd like to think you could live forever, but there does seem to be some kind of a cutting off point. Maybe I talk like you were someone who was just discovering a lot of these things for the first time. There could be a shower of rain. There's a fresh breeze and kind of feel could be rain in the air, but it would just be a shower. There's plenty of blue. Just looking at two people there with two small kids. I think not having kids puts me in this kind of extra philosophical position. I've got all the time in the world to think about these issues, you know. And maybe some people, when they have kids, they just don't have time for all this bullshit. They've got to work, look after kids. They've got very immediate problems to solve. And it's probably when people finish, the kids grow up, leave, maybe the people retire, they start thinking like this. That it's only maybe at that point that cut-off point I was talking about starts to kind of register. And well, empathy just grows in people. You see it in all kinds of vast majority, 99.9% of older people. They have that empathy in their eyes. But I don't have kids, so I've had all this time, extra time, to focus on this without coming up with very many solutions, if there is any. I would think the point of it all, and the point of every philosopher that ever lived, is there isn't really any solutions to it. There's just some kind of better ways to deal with it than others. If you could embrace your own death with both arms, and instead of being afraid of the thing, you positively look forward to it. But I don't think many of us are there. I often think if it's like a mental exercise, if there was this magic potion which would put you to sleep, never to wake up. And it was that simple, it was beautiful, there was absolutely no, you genuinely just, you know, if you were ready, you'd take the thing and just sleep. And let's say the sleep would commence literally within a half a minute of taking the potion. You would just start to feel incredibly relaxed. It was like, not that you'd just black out, the actual process of getting tired and falling asleep was the most beautiful part of the experience. It was like when you get back from working in the Lloyds and you get back home and maybe you stay up for a little while, you do something, but then when you lie down at maybe 10 or 11, the sleep that used to come to me at that point was just magnificent. I would just think it was like sinking down into some kind of molten substance. It was like just really you're floating up and away, kind of. It was not like trying to sleep, it was the opposite of that. It was just like, I guess it's the experience Flo has most of the time, it was just being embraced by sleep, a wonderful sensation. So let's say you had this substance and it did that. It gave you this wonderful sense of just a deep, relaxing entry into sleep, which happened very quickly after you took it. So wasn't like you took it and you had 4 hours to contemplate it and change your mind and start getting all kind of... No, it was immediate. Suppose such a substance was readily available. God, it's an interesting concept. Suppose it was readily available. You could go to the pharmacy and buy it like you buy a painkiller. My initial thought was, how many people would take it on its release? Its release would be their release. There you go, that would be the marketing tagline of the product. Our release is your release. Would we have news stories on Sky News saying, today another 50,000 people have taken the release capsule or to sleep? That brings the monthly total to 200,000. Can you imagine if that happened? And if the news people and people are going, my God, it's like it's been taken by hundreds of thousands of people, getting close to 1 million people have quite happily just taken this thing. And they've done various surveys and stuff, and the vast majority of people are not suffering any kind of serious depressions. There are that. There are also people who are ill. But the surprising find is that there's actually a higher percentage of well people that don't seem to have any problems taking it. And the even bigger surprise is that in terms of age groups, it's the 20 to 30 year olds are taking it in abundance. Or maybe that wouldn't be the case. Maybe it would be the 50 to 60 or the 60 to 70. Maybe it'd be everybody over 50 that have got to where I am and we just think, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre, or maybe it was the other guy, Camus, who wrote about such things. And I think one of them said the only really serious philosophical question is, should a person commit suicide? Anything really worth discussing. It cuts to everything, you know. If you have this choice of slipping away painlessly, in fact slipping away in a wonderful way, would you take it? Or would you be absolutely appalled and just run a mile from such a thing? I have to say, thinking about it now puts me in a... Well, it's a strange position because I can't definitely say I wouldn't take it. It is something that would appeal to me. It's definitely something I'd like to have. It's definitely something I'd like to have. Way out. And I know it's easy to talk about these philosophical, it's like just a thought exercise. If you had that thing right now in your hand and you could break the seal and it's like a small can and you could down it into Connemara, would you really do that though? Would you, when you're really realizing? I probably wouldn't, because I'd be thinking of all the people. Yeah, I think that's where the thought of compassion and empathy would come in, which is a strange state of affairs for a self-centered prick like me. But I think when all's said and done, I would think of Flo. And I would think, my God, your act, as easy as it would be for you, would be incredibly selfish for the people you're leaving behind. And also you're leaving them behind with a kind of a mess. I don't just mean what's left of you, I mean psychologically a mess. So I think when I think about my mother, and then I'd have to reconsider it. But of course, man, if I was like Jack, was it Jack or the guy that used to come to the Connemara and now he's in the old folks home. And if you were in that guy's position, Jesus, you'd take the thing in a fucking heartbeat. On the other hand as well, we never know how good things could get. I know there's a reverse to that as well, but let's just concentrate on how good things could get. We don't know. It may be that all this, if you want to call it planting or working on ourselves, will pay off at some point. Although right now in my 55th year, it's hard to see that I'm ever going to be any different. I don't really know what I want. I never have. I'm not sure I ever will. You know, you could kind of say to yourself, well, maybe this crypto will go through the roof and you'll be a wealthy person with flow and you'll travel around forever, you know. And yet I kind of know in myself, well, that would certainly be exciting for a bit, but sooner, probably rather than later, I will default to this position, even if I'm walking in a stranger place. It's hard to see from here where the big uplift could come, but that doesn't mean I haven't ruled it out or anything, because I'm always at one to point out the things in my life now that were not existent in my consciousness a few years ago. I keep saying, 20 or more years ago, I wouldn't have seen myself driving around cyclists. I wouldn't have seen myself driving anywhere. Here I am, you can never know what's coming. And I guess, in a sense, it kind of cheers me up a bit, this thought. It's kind of worth hanging around just to see what happens. As long as you don't have any serious issues, personal, mental, or medical issues, as long as your life is, like now, comfortable. Whoops. Comfortable. There's someone on a bike behind me. I'm crossing the little dry river. As long as your life is comfortable and everything, then, well, wouldn't you just like to hang around and see what happens? See where it all goes. What's going to happen in 20 years? We'll still be here. Good luck. Possibly. Toss a coin. But where do we end up? Where does flow end up? Will your mother hopefully have another wonderful 20 years and then slip away peacefully? That sounds a bit morbid, but I mean it in the nicest way. Will Martina defy all the odds and meet somebody else and get married again and be happy? Will John meet the woman of his dreams? And she'll be 20 years younger than him, but she'll be absolutely obsessed by him. guess he'll have just become. It's always pretty cool to me, but he'll be Mr. Cool, you know. What's going to happen to all the Monjo's people now in time? You know, the story I'm in is kind of interesting. Kind of. If you look at it, I got a fantastic cryptocurrency analogy here. If you look at it on the hourly map, it can look kind of boring. But if you zoom out, and look at it on a much longer scale, it can be interesting. So maybe just out of curiosity, I wouldn't drink the magic drink. I think I'm going to turn off the main road up toward the school. That ties in nicely with something I was saying earlier on this episode. That you may, through facing some of these issues, mortality, of usefulness, of well, you know, the psychology, you may, it may help develop new types of calmness, new types of understanding. And dare I say it, that word that I think it still has some magic about it, wisdom, because wisdom is not intelligence and it's not understanding as the way I interpret it. Wisdom is just something, wisdom is magic almost. The wizard, wisdom, wise old man. It's an understanding of things that supersede and are much more on a completely different level than any of the material stuff that we think is important, but ultimately is not. Wisdom is on another level. And maybe by focusing on the existentialist problems that people like Camus and Sartre talked about, maybe it's a way to just gain a little bit of that. And so you see the big picture and you say to yourself, well, I just want to see how it turns out. Perhaps that simple little thought can have a certain magic, relaxing effect. Because when you say, I want to see how it turns out, you're literally looking into the hopefully very distant future and wondering how things turn out for so many different people, because not just your family, how will it turn out for other people that you vaguely know on the internet or it's a nice thought to hang on to sometimes, I suppose. Hard to hang on to thoughts like that, though. We get swallowed up in the glycine of the daily nonsense. I've been talking for 40 minutes. And I didn't turn this on straight away when I left the house. I actually walked quite a way, so this is a very slow walk. Now I'm reaching the vaccination area. I know where that is in Orizon. Going up the hill. I shall have some coffee and play a game of chess. Begin to walk home. Eat some comfort food. Probably fish fingers and mashed potatoes. And then, I don't know. And then I should try and perhaps find something new to do in Transport Fever. I'm still kind of intrigued by the game. I just need to find an interesting way of playing it. Yes, I shall sign off. I think as I get close to the home hour. Adios.